Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and today we're going to talk about Trump's visit to China and meeting Xi Jinping. So let's get right into it. Let's get into his arrival in China and him meeting Xi Jinping. So here's Trump's arrival in Beijing, China. He's exiting off the plane, and he's got an entourage of people waiting for him on the tarmac here with his big U.S. Air Force One plane in the background. A bunch of teenagers, kids waving flags and flowers and welcoming him, saying, welcome Trump, in his beast vehicle, limousine, waiting for him that he actually took with him from the United States, and it arrived there before he arrived, so it was be ready for him when he gets there. And so let's take a look at his arrival.
And here's the president exiting the plane now, going to come down those steps to this particular ceremony that we're going to see here. Jonathan, we had just had Janice explain to us tomorrow is really where we'll see a lot of that pomp and circumstance when he actually meets with Xi Jinping, when the two of them are together. But walk us through what we're going to see here in this moment and just how significant it is, the president stepping onto Chinese soil.
Yeah, I mean, as your colleague said at the outset, I mean, this is the first time we've had a U.S. president visiting China in nearly a decade, right? And President Trump was the last one to make this trip back in 2017.
Face-to-face with Xi Jinping for most of the morning, and then they will do a walking tour together of the Temple of Heaven. It's a beautiful 15th century structure. They've closed it to tourists for the day for this very occasion. And then later there will be a state banquet, and then into Friday the meetings continue. Tea and lunch at Zhongnanhai. This is the center of power for Chinese politicians here in Beijing. So this is a shorter visit than last time, cut to just 2 days.
All right, so that was Trump getting off the plane. That's him with his big old greeting that he received. Now, do you normally see this with other countries when they arrive? Do you see this big of a greeting, this big of a welcoming? I think this is an extra big deal here that Trump is going over to China, meeting with Xi Jinping in his own country. I think this is a big deal, Trump going here to China. I don't remember this big of a gathering, this big of a welcoming before when he went, or any other presidents went for that matter. Remember when Putin went a few years ago? I don't think he got this big of a welcoming or gathering. And also when Putin went with the president of India and met with Xi Jinping, I don't think they had this big of a gathering either. So this is a big, big deal for both China and the United States. And so this is when they first arrived at night, I believe Wednesday evening. And then going on into Thursday, they also had more of a big celebration for him. So let's take a look at that.
This morning, we have the flags of both China and the United States. The height outside of the Great Hall of the People right now, and as mentioned, we are just steps from Tiananmen Square. Of course, the site of pro-democracy rallies back in 1989, and it announces a huge event for both countries right now.
Okay, here, so you got a couple small words, a couple nice big smiles from both the presidents here, and walking up, greeting each other, the first handshake here on Chinese soil. They're going to do their paparazzi photographs and whatnot, and then we're going to have more big celebration. So this here is at the Hall of the People, they call it in China, one of the fields that they had closed down for today for this meeting. I gotta say that is pretty nice here. Them playing the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem here in the United States upon arrival. Trump doing the salute, the guns, the rockets firing off. That was pretty nice. That's a pretty nice touch there.
左等不下，中国人民解放军仪仗队列队完毕，轻轻点阅。
So I think you can look at this two different ways here. This is actually a big show of respect here doing the two national anthems. I believe that was the Chinese national anthem that they played after the American national anthem. And then the soldier walks up, does his little greeting, does his little thing that he has to do there to show for the president to come on down. Now they're going to do a little walk in the red carpet in front of the military. That's either a big show of respect, or you can say that is a show of force. Them walking in front of the military, all perfect, sitting there, perfectly still. Even Trump mentioned that a couple days ago, how perfect aligned each and every one of them are. So that could be a show of force there. Like, look at our powerful military. Look how powerful our people are. You can look at it either way.
Okay, some of the celebratory pieces of the entrance here as we have been listening in. President Trump, President Xi walking the red carpet. National security analyst Hal Kempfer still on the line with me. Hal, what is the chief item of business? You and I have talked about the national security implications of this meeting, but really President Trump says the economic facets of this discussion is what he says will be the most important piece of it.
Well, this Taiwan and a concept of a big thing that he was going to talk about, but South China Sea, focused on Taiwan, is one of the biggest contingencies that our U.S. military is looking at.
So here you go now. He's looking more. They got the little kids there with the flags and the flowers all jumping around.
And I'll keep watching this live, but I just got to ask you, Hal, what does and what can we glean, if we can,
from the British tradition from Hong Kong or something, but sword drill is something that's drilled into all Marine officers. We spend a lot of time on sword drill, which would seem a rather arcane, and some would say borderline useless skill set. But it was interesting to see that he was doing it, and I was watching him, and he was doing it very well. So obviously, he rehearsed that, and believe me, if you're doing something like that, you rehearse it very closely. The last thing you want to do is mess it up, and of course, you never want to drop your sword. That would be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting watching that. That was kind of a little bit different. I hadn't seen that with some of these state visits, and I saw it in this one.
Let's keep listening in.
So as you just heard there, even the commentator mentioned that some of this stuff that's going on here at this presidential meeting did not happen previously at other presidential or state meetings. So also just keep that in mind. This is a very important meeting for both Trump and for Xi Jinping here. So let's get a little bit more into the meat of this meeting here. What do you think they want to talk about? Trump probably wants to talk about trade deals. He wants to talk about the Strait of Hormuz. He wants to talk about trade and AI technology. These are the things that Trump wants to talk about here, and it's only a 2-day meeting. So let's hear this article, and I'll give you a little bit of my thoughts on this as we go through it.
President Trump says his talks in Beijing today with Chinese President Xi went great, while China's leader had a blunt warning for the U.S. over Taiwan.
Natalie Brand is at the White House with the details of that high-stakes summit.
The day started with a warm handshake between Presidents Trump and Xi and an elaborate welcome ceremony at Beijing's Great Hall of the People before the two leaders headed inside for their summit.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
Top CEOs, including Elon Musk and Apple's Tim Cook, joined for part of the meeting, with President Trump urging China to open up to more U.S. business and to buy more American agricultural products. On Iran, President Trump told Fox News that Xi said he would like to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz and said China agreed not to supply Iran with weapons.
So if you noticed here, Trump brought all the big dogs in there to China with him. He brought Elon Musk, the head of Tesla, the head of EV technology. He brought in the head of NVIDIA microchips, where he's trying to make a deal. I think they said they're opening certain factories that are able to now purchase those chips from NVIDIA. He brought in the head of Apple. He brought in several of the big dogs. Everybody, the top number one guy, not the assistant guy. He brought in the top number one guy because Trump wants to say that he is serious and he really wants to make a deal. Also, one thing that you might have noticed is that a Chinese full carrier, oil rig carrier or cargo ship was able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz today, even though previously a ship got held hostage by the Americans and we're not able to let pass. So maybe that's also a show of kindness from Trump to Xi Jinping, saying that, hey, look what we're able to do for you. We're controlling the strait. Look, your ship's able to go through. This is where you get 80% of your oil. You need oil. We'll let oil come through for you. What are you going to do for us? We brought all our big dogs from all our major companies here for trade deals. Are you going to trade with us? Are you going to open up this trade deal and slow down those sanctions?
Going to give military equipment. That's a big statement. He said that today. That's a big statement. He said that strongly. But at the same time, he said, they buy a lot of their oil there, and they'd like to keep doing that.
A senior administration official says Taiwan also came up, with both sides reiterating their long-held stance on the issue. For decades, the U.S. has declined to recognize China's claim over the self-governing island, selling defensive weapons to Taiwan. In a blunt statement today, China warned the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts if the issue isn't handled properly. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill say they're committed to Taiwan's defense.
We have told the Chinese do not attack them. I hope that remains clear after President Trump's trip over there.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio Thursday told NBC News that it would be a terrible mistake if China took Taiwan by force.
See, so as you can see here, the media is trying to push this as in Beijing war, that Xi Jinping is being very strong and giving a dire warning to the United States here. Don't intermingle with our business over China and Beijing. But if you think, really, Trump is the one with all the cards here. Trump is the one with the power. Trump is the one that's in control of Hormuz and the Strait of Hormuz here. China needs their oil. They need all that oil coming in order to build their factories, to build anything that they have. They need it. Also, they need to be able to trade with the United States. We're blocking their trades. And Trump is saying, hey, we can open that back up for you. That's all you have to do is make a couple trade deals. Let us ship our products to you rather than going to other third parties or making your own. Why don't you buy ours? So I think that's what's going on here. I think Trump is doing a master plan deal. He's going in there giving pleasantries, kind words, all those things, and all the media is saying, hey, don't mess with Taiwan, don't mess with Taiwan. And I think there's a lot more going on here than that. I think we'll see coming tomorrow or Monday. So that's all I got here for you today. So what do you think? Do you think Trump is the one who has the power at hand here? Or do you think it's Xi Jinping talking about Taiwan, don't mess with this Taiwan deal? Or do you think Trump is the one with the power, the one in control here, because we're in the Strait of Hormuz, because we've got the manufacturing deals, the trade deal options here, and what does China really have to offer? So go ahead and leave your comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.